is Mary Elizabeth Anderson, and I have lived in Lincoln for the last 4.5 years. Prior to that, we lived in Grand Island for 30 years. And before that, we resided in Jefferson, Iowa for 12 years. We came due to my husband's transfer, and that's how we ended up in Nebraska. Well, I must say it very much influenced my writing in Link Across America, a story of the historic Lincoln Highway. I first became interested in that project because of friends that lived in Iowa. And then as we lived in Grand Island at the time, I was excited because the Lincoln Highway ran directly through our town. So I became sparked by that and delved into the situation a little more and discovered all the little neat towns and haunts and diners and motels along the Lincoln Highway in Nebraska. So I think it was because of that project came to fruition. Oh, well, I have several people. My sister worked part-time in the library at Shenandoah, Iowa, and so I spent a lot of time there. And that's where I discovered my love of reading. And then my parents, both my mother and father, encouraged my reading a lot and all my literary events. And I must say, I have to give a lot of credit to them. And I also have writers that have influenced me. Catherine Patterson is one. I love her work because she writes in rather the same vein that I do. She writes spiritual books for children and with themes and concepts that I like to incorporate. I also like Eve Bunting, Phyllis Reynolds Naylor, and Dandy Daly Mackle, who is a personal friend of mine, and she has written over 450 books for both adults and children, and she has served as a mentor to me on several occasions. Well, actually, I started writing about the age of 9 or 10, and I can remember the exact moment when I decided I'd like to become a writer. I was leaving the library with a full stack of books in my arms, walking down 7th Avenue to my home, and I leaned over to shake some gravel out of my sandal and looked at the books in my arms, and I thought, nothing could be more exciting for me than to see my name on the cover of a book someday. So I then started writing a little newspaper for my aunt because she was very ill, and the extended family members liked it a lot. I continued with that for a while and always started to write little stories and poems at that age. So I started considering being a writer at that time. Well, there are many things, but probably I get the most inspiration whenever I attend a workshop or a conference and I'm around other writers. That is totally stimulating to me. And so I do have writer friends that I communicate with via email, and I belong to 2 local writers groups here in Lincoln, wonderful groups. And when I go home, well, it's a critique group. We really do help each other. And when I go home, I am so inspired that I can just hardly wait to get to my office and work on some of my projects. Well, I must say that most of my stories are contemporary based and reality based with a spiritual tender light is what I try to get across. And I like to write stories that will help kids over the bumps in the roads of life and transitions, moving from preschool to elementary and into middle school. Those are big transitions. I like to write helpful, entertaining, and encouraging stories for these kids. Well, I like to know I have a long stretch of time in which I can write. That works for me much better than just little short snippets of time. I prefer mornings, but if I have one complete day that I can devote to writing when I have no other outside involvements, I love it. And I can get a lot done in one whole day. And I like the house to be absolutely quiet when I write without people coming in and out. And I don't even care for background music. I just need it totally quiet. Well, it definitely depends on what I'm writing, of course. And my latest book is for middle grade readers, and I find it very, very easy to write in that voice of Gracie Gannon and her friends. And that's why I'm so inspired by that age group, by that middle grade age group. I really think of Gracie as a living, breathing person, and I think that comes across in her voice. I do have other characters I like to write for. I have a 3-year-old little boy named Albert, and his next door neighbor is a 90-year-old lady. So those are very distinctive voices. So they're really a lot of fun to write for in that context too. Well, I actively started to write for publication in 1991, and I started by taking several classes out at the community college, and that's where I learned how to market my work. I definitely wanted to be published, so I needed to know that route. I needed to know what to do, and there's a lot to learn. And I think you kind of have to pay your dues a little bit, because I spent a good many years before my first book came out. But I would really encourage anyone to take community college classes and find out about marketing. And if they're interested in writing for children, I suggest that they join the Society of Book Writers and Illustrators, SCBWI. And through that organization, you receive a bulletin where you can just get a wealth of information and send off for other publications. There are people to contact. They can hook up with critique groups, online critique groups. And I also encourage them to try to join a critique group here, and that is invaluable. As far as encouraging, of course, everyone always hears to write every day, which I cannot always fit into my schedule. But I think having a strong network of writers that support you, and I believe some of my writers groups are coming here today, and that is invaluable. You must have that stimulation. And also, you must be passionate about your project. If you're not, just wanting to get down there and work on it, that shows through. Now, when McGill came through for the first reader, there were some comments, and I really can't wait for a day to sit down and go through all of that and revise a little bit. These characters, you have to love them, and they have to jump off the page at you. And you really, really have to think of them as living, breathing characters, because they're going to be around with you for a long, long time. So you have to love your characters, and you have to be passionate about that project. If you're not, it's really going to show through, and it's really not going to go very far. I've heard a lot of people tell me, they want to write a book someday. It's very, very hard work. I started actively pursuing it in 1991, and that's after I took my 2 classes at the community college and learned how to market my work. I had no idea how to do that beforehand. And you need that expertise from somebody that can really help you. So I definitely suggest classes in marketing, and also reading every kind of newsletter and market book that they possibly can, and talking with other people about their experiences, seeing how they came out with one publishing company, how they work. You need to know all that nitty-gritty. And it is, if you don't have an agent, I have had 2 in the past. I don't have one at this time. There's a lot that falls onto your shoulders. And I guess every day I just make a list of my priorities for the day and start down, do the first things that are the most important, see how much I can get done. But focus, entirely focus if you want a career as a writer.
Good afternoon. My name is Meredith McGowan. I'm the curator of the Heritage Room, and I'd like to welcome you to the Heritage Room and to the John H. Ames Reading Series. We're very excited that this reading series has been in existence for more than 20 years. And it used to be on the third Thursdays of the month, and then when we closed Bennett Martin in the evenings recently, we moved the series to Sunday afternoons at 2 o'clock. So that's what we're doing here on this lovely Sunday afternoon. And I appreciate your being here. This is the 179th reading in the Ames reading series, by the way. And it will continue, even though the paper said this morning that it was the final Ames reading. I noticed. There will be more. We are here in the Jane Pope Geske Heritage Room of Nebraska Authors. This is a special collection, and it's dedicated to promoting and preserving works by and about Nebraska authors. This is a representative collection, about 13,000 volumes, written by about 3,000 authors from Nebraska. And we also do have information files, magazines, pictures. If you look around the room, you'll see things on the walls, artwork, and other memorabilia too. So we'd love to have you come back during our regular public service hours. And actually, some of those public service hours are right now because we are open on Sunday afternoons from 2 to 5. And from Tuesday through Friday from 12 to 3. So, like I said, we'd love to have you come back. We are on the third floor of the Bennett Martin Public Library, and you probably know that because you walked into the building and came up to the third floor. But if you're watching this on 5 City TV later, you might not know exactly where we are. So we are on the third floor of Bennett Martin in downtown Lincoln. I'd like to also thank the Nebraska Literary Heritage Association. We're able to bring special programs like these because of an endowment that was established through their volunteer efforts. Our reader today is Mary Elizabeth Anderson. I believe she was born in Iowa, and she has lived a good part of her life in Nebraska, though. She spent years teaching in elementary schools in Jefferson, Iowa, and I think she substituted in the Grand Island schools, so that's always kind of a fun job. I do that myself, so I can appreciate a good substitute. In and around the teaching that she's done, I suspect she's managed to publish over 100 stories and articles. She's also written several books for children, including The Link Across America, a story of the historic Lincoln Highway. She also wrote It's Me Again, God. And she also wrote Taking Cerebral Palsy to School. And that actually is dedicated to Chad Madsen, who is a volunteer, at least here at Bennett Martin, and he may have volunteered other places too, I'm not sure. He's a great guy. And she's also written a book called Gracie Gannon, Middle School Zero. And I think this is one of the ones that you'll hear more about today when we welcome Mary Elizabeth Anderson to talk to us. So if you could help me welcome her, that would be great.
Thank you. Thank you, Meredith. It's a pleasure to be here in the Heritage Room of the Bennett Martin Library today as part of the Ames reading series. I am going to read the first 2 chapters of Gracie Gannon, Middle School Zero. This is the 6th book I've written for children and the first novel. And you'll see in this story that social acceptability is awarded rather carefully in 5th, 6th, and 7th grades, making certain to exclude those who are unqualified. I've always been aware of bullying issues since my grade school days. I started out with this classmate in kindergarten and went all the way through high school and even through the college days with him. And this child was constantly bullied. It did get better when he got to college. But he turned out to be a wonderful man, and he is a radio announcer, and life turned out great for him. But hopefully, Gracie Gannon, Middle School Zero, can help to open kids' eyes to the issues of bullying, belonging, and dealing with insecurities. So this book shows them how to deal with these issues, and it does leave them with hope. So I will start today with chapter 1. I plan to read the first 2 chapters. "Hey, check out Gracie's scraggly hair. Looks like she had her little brother cut it," Cassie said. She was staring directly at me. "For Pete's sake, Cassie, lay off," said Sarah, flashing her large black eyes. Heat rose in my body. My wrists began to itch like they always did when I got nervous or upset. Without thinking, I started to scratch them until big red welts appeared. "Look at the right side of her head. What a haircut! It's all uneven and jagged," Cassie whispered. She held her hand to the side of her mouth so Sarah's mom wouldn't hear. "What beauty salon do you go to anyway? Or did you cut it without turning the lights on?" Sarah stared straight at Cassie, lowered her voice, and said, "That's mean, Cassie." Sliding as far back in the seat as I could, I shrank into the corner. My wrists stung, my face burned. How dare she talk about me like that? "What's going on back there, girls?" Sarah's mother asked as she turned to see what was happening in the back seat. "Oh, nothing," said Cassie in a soft voice. She studied her blood-red fingernails and turned her pouty mouth up into a smile. Then she shook her head from side to side. Her blonde spiked hair with a purple streak wiggled back and forth. "Just drop me off at this next corner. I'll walk home from there," I told Sarah's mom. I jumped out as soon as she stopped the car and took off running down the street. I reached into my pocket for a crumpled tissue to wipe my glasses. I couldn't stop my tears. When people gave me a ride home, I always asked them to drop me off at the corner so they wouldn't see my house. The houses on the street get smaller and sadder the closer you get to the tracks on the edge of town. When I reached my small house, I wondered why those girls in the popular group would want to be friends with me anyway. I couldn't offer them a place to hang out after school. I was just a runty girl with freckles and straight dishwater brown hair that still had a bit of growing out permanent on its frizzy ends. I was a girl who wore glasses and lived in the part of town where people buy their good china at Kmart and park broken down cars in their yards. I ran past the porch swing and into the house, banging the door shut behind me as I ran to my room. I looked in my pink plastic hand mirror and tossed it on my bed, plopping down beside it. Loneliness swept over me. I wadded my pillow into a ball, hugged it close, and buried my face in its softness. What is wrong with me? Since none of the girls in my 6th grade class lived near me anymore, I usually had to go places alone. I had gone to school with Sarah and Cassie since kindergarten, but after Dad lost his office job, we had to move to a small house in a different part of town. Everything changed. My group didn't include me anymore. What can I do to make them like me better? What do people do to get popular? What can I do to fit in? The next morning, I decided I'd try extra hard to make the group like me better. But how? Finally, I decided what I could do. When the bell rang for the special assembly, I hustled out of my seat as fast as I could. I raced to the front row where the group always sat. I focused on a seat right in the middle of the row. I'd act just like I belonged. "Quit pushing, Gracie. You almost knocked the books out of my arms." Elbows jabbed and eyes glared at me as I tried to wiggle my way into the center of the row. "Move over, Gracie. I got here first," said Zoe, my sometimes friend. I thought of her that way because some days she saved a seat for me and some days she didn't. "Get out of here. You so don't belong in this row." Cassie squinted her eyes and pushed her pouty little mouth right next to my face. I found myself in the last seat of the row, next to the aisle. I won't give up. But even with pushing, shoving, and all the noise and excitement, I couldn't scoot into the center of the group. They just shoved me to the side like an old, forgotten gum wrapper. As I left the auditorium, I noticed a new girl walking alone in the hallway. She had pretty blonde hair and a friendly smile. I wanted to stop and ask her name, but my throat wouldn't let me. Why would she want a loser for a friend anyway? Then I saw the group. Cassie in the middle pushed right past the new girl. Why wouldn't they stop to talk to her? Why did they have to blow her off too? I decided to tell Mom about Zoe when she got home from work at Engelman Elementary School. Zoe's mom and my mom sang in the church choir together, and they always chatted whenever they could. Mom and I didn't have any time alone till after dinner. I thought Dad and Zach were never going to finish their angel food cake. I gazed around at our cozy kitchen. Plants were growing on the windowsill, and the animal calendar was still in place on the wall. I wondered if Mom would ever get to rip off that red and pink floral wallpaper that she hated. I knew she didn't like it. She always talked about how old and dated it made the kitchen look. She didn't like the worn spots in the floor either. She kept them covered with red throw rugs. Dad and Zach went outside to shoot some hoops. Finally, Mom and I started clearing the dishes from the table. Mom, Zoe sure acted mean to me today. Zoe, I thought you two were good friends. Not anymore. I had to keep swallowing to keep the lump out of my throat. I heard my voice crack. Mom gave me a quick look and pushed her glasses up to the top of her head like she always does when she gets nervous. She actually shoved me out of the way today when we went into the assembly. Are you sure? Maybe she just got caught up with all the excitement. I know how everyone rushes into assemblies. No, Mom, she demanded I get out of the way. I started scratching my wrists and fiddling with the cuticles on my fingernails. Oh, that's too bad, Gracie girl. But you know Zoe. She acts before she thinks. I know she still acts like a little kid sometimes. You're much more mature. Don't give up on her. Should I talk to her, Mom? No, don't do that. That'd make me look like a real loser. Oh, why don't you give her another chance? Mom kept wiping the kitchen counter by the sink over and over in the same spot. Okay, I'd give Zoe another chance. That night, I wrote in my diary, even though Zoe told me the other day she couldn't stand Cassie, I'll give her another chance. What a two-faced traitor she's turned into, though. I ended by writing, what will happen next in the lonely life of Gracie Gannon, Middle School 0? The next day after school, I started to walk home with Macy and some kids from the 7th grade class. Look, said Macy, squinting her eyes and pointing. Isn't that Zoe and Cassie up ahead? Macy's red bobbed hair bounced with every step she took. Should we ask them to wait up so you can walk with them? The rest of us turn at this corner. Nah, that's all right. I'll catch up with them. I felt brave after Macy and her friends turned the corner. I don't know why, but I decided to call out to Zoe, even though she was walking with Cassie. Hey, Zoe! Zoe turned her head when she heard my voice. Wait up! I started to run. Zoe! I called again, running as fast as I could. My book bag was jamming into the center of my back every step of the way. My heart beat faster and faster. What is going on? Zoe and Cassie had started to run. They were actually running away from me. I saw Cassie turn to look at me, but Zoe just kept on going. I felt my face turn red. I slowed down, almost to a standstill. Tears filled my eyes. My heart ached. Everything inside hurt. It's no use. I guess Zoe and I just won't be friends ever again. I dragged myself home, feeling lonelier with each step. Will life always be this way? Will I ever fit in? I try so hard, but things just don't seem to work. Last week flashed through my mind as I remembered how Cassie and Zoe and some of the others had pointed at me and made loud, rude remarks about Dad's old truck when he dropped me off at school. I wanted to crawl in a hole and die when I noticed the other kids staring at the rundown, rusted old thing. Oh, no, I wasn't about to go through that again. I couldn't quit thinking about Dad. I felt so sorry for him. I really hated that he had to work so hard painting houses. Seemed like he worked much longer hours these days painting than he did when he had his office job. Sunday, the highlight of my week, finally arrived. I couldn't wait until our evening youth group because for the 2 hours I was there, I fit in. The rest of the week, I knew I didn't. Except for Sarah, none of the kids from youth group were in my classes at school. None of them lived close to me either. After dinner, I cut through the park and made my way around the large fountain in the center of the church courtyard. Usually, I took time to walk on the concrete ledge that circled it, but not that day. My toes already felt like icicles, even though I wore my thickest socks. Thoughts about what we might do at youth group raced through my head. Will we see a video? Play games? Have a lesson of some sort? I always loved the way Jay, our leader, and his wife Maureen made everything so much fun, no matter what we did. I opened the door to Fellowship Hall and heard loud laughter and the rhythmic bounce of the ping pong ball. "Hey, Jason, you're supposed to keep the ball on the table," Mark shouted. "This is ping pong, not basketball." "Hi, Macy," I said as I hung my red wool coat on a hook next to her bright blue ski jacket. Macy's Hazel's eyes twinkled. She ran her hands through her red hair and replied, "I almost froze getting here, didn't you?" We entered the main room. A fire blazed in the fireplace, snapping and popping as orange flames flickered and danced around its corners. "Should we ask Jason and Mark if we can play ping pong with them?" asked Macy. "Oh, let's see if we can have a turn now and try a practice game first, then ask if they want to play with us, okay?" Yummy smells of sloppy joes drifted from the kitchen, which finally brought our game to a halt. After the sandwiches, chips, and brownies, the 2 hours of youth group were over. Everyone moved slowly into the hall to collect their belongings and leave. Most everyone was headed on to other activities. "What movie are you going to?" I heard Macy ask Sarah. "Little Women. I can't wait. It's going to be way cool." I started to walk down the street alone. I must be the only one in the whole world not going to the movies tonight. The warmth I felt inside at youth group evaporated as I hurried down the street. Why doesn't anyone ever call and ask me to go to the movies with them? Why am I such a loner? Am I just a leftover? A zero? I pulled my coat tighter to protect me from the March wind and the loneliness that crept into every cell of my body. I couldn't wait to get home. Our small house didn't have a fireplace, but I'd feel warmth from the closeness of my family. I couldn't wait to dive into the popcorn ball and drink hot cocoa with Zach. The next morning, I walked to school thinking about my math assignment. I knew I hadn't done all the problems correctly. Why is life such a struggle? I kicked a can out of the way as hard as I could and heard it clang down the street. Will life always be this way? How do people get popular anyway? What can I do to make the kids in the group like me better? What can I do to get at least one good friend? Then it seemed like I heard a voice in my head say, "There are so many nice girls in your class, Gracie. Choose some others for friends." But no one wants me. I've tried and tried to act nice to everyone, and it doesn't help. No one likes me. Nothing works out. Try again. Flashes of last night's youth group lesson ran through my mind. What was it Jay said about the Good Samaritan parable? 2 men walked right by the man the bandit beat up and left to die. Then the third man who walked by felt pity for the poor man and took him to an inn and cared for him. I liked that story a lot. Maybe that's kind of like when I ignored that pretty new girl with the blonde hair. What if everyone else ignored her too? That day at lunch, I looked around the cafeteria to see if I could find Zoe. You could always tell when Zoe was around, even before you saw her. She constantly chewed gum and popped it whenever she had a chance. That bad habit really annoyed me. She was sitting at the table with my old group and laughing at something. Everyone was yucking it up. Are they laughing at me? I wish I knew. I grabbed my tray and looked around for a place to sit. That's when I saw the new girl sitting at a table by herself. How embarrassing. I decided to join her. Hi. I set my tray down. Saving this seat? For you, she smiled. Her blue eyes twinkled when she spoke. Really? We haven't even met. I'm Gracie Gannon. You're new here, right? Yeah, I'm Maddy Hall. We moved here about a month ago, and I really haven't gotten to know anyone in my class very well. It's hard to move in after school starts, you know? Everyone seems to already have a group of friends. When I nodded, Maddy pointed to the table where everyone sat. I saw some of the girls from that table push you around the day of our assembly. I felt sorry for you. Why didn't you tell a teacher? Maddy took another bite of her macaroni and cheese, then pushed the rest of her lunch around her plate. Oh, I didn't want to tattle on them. I wondered how many other kids noticed that humiliating scene. Maybe lots. It almost made me gag just thinking about it. So where do you live? I broke off a piece of bread and stuffed it into my mouth. Oh, on the corner of Mason Street and 6th Avenue, in a yellow house with green shutters. How about you? We used to live on Mason Street, I answered, but when Dad changed jobs, we moved to 6th Avenue. Why am I telling her this? Words just flew out of my mouth. I could walk part way home with you after school today if you want me to. That is, unless you have other plans. Nope, I don't. Where should we meet? How about the door next to the band room? That's the way I usually leave. Cool. See ya. Maddy and I talked a lot on the way home. I learned she had a brother named Will in the 5th grade and an older sister, Isabel. I told her about my little brother, Zach. When we stopped at the corner of Mason and 6th, I told Maddy how much I hated math. Math is my favorite subject, Maddy pushed her blonde hair behind her ears. I'll help you with your math homework sometime if you want me to. That would really rock, Maddy. Maybe we could go to the library after school. Or you could stop at my house on the way home. How about tomorrow? Then you can meet Will and Isabel. Yeah, sounds fun. I'll ask my mom. The next day after school, I met Isabel, Maddy's pretty older sister. Her brother wasn't home. Maddy explained the math problems to me so easily that I said, I bet you'll make an awesome teacher someday, Maddy. You explain this better than Mr. Brewer. Pretty soon, it seemed like I stopped at Maddy's house for a while, almost every day after school. Most days we'd work on our math assignments. Sometimes we just talked about the teachers, our lunches, and the different boys in our class. One day I met her super cute brother, Will. He looked almost exactly like Maddy, with blonde hair and sparkling eyes. Several weeks after Maddy and I started to hang together, I made a quick trip into the restroom one morning. I was ready to check my hair at the mirror when I heard some of the girls from the group talking. My stomach turned cold. It makes me sad to remember I used to hang with them. I stayed in my stall and listened. I heard Cassie's whiny voice blare out above the others. She was saying something about Maddy. I listened closer. What I don't understand is why Maddy wants to hang with Gracie. Why would she want her for a friend? My stomach cramped. I felt like I'd swallowed a fistful of pebbles. My face got hot. The palms of my hands began to sweat, and my heart pounded so hard. I wondered if they could hear it clear out there. I heard some more mumbling, but couldn't make out the words. I thought I heard Zoe's squeaky voice, but Cassie was doing most of the talking. No one else ever talked as loud as Cassie did. Then I heard Sarah say, "Knock it off, Cassie. Why do you say such mean things about Gracie?" "Well, she keeps trying to follow us around all the time. You know she does. And I don't like the way she dresses some days. What did you think of the dumb outfit she wore yesterday?" My legs wobbled. I couldn't swallow. I could feel my head start to split in two as I tried to remember what I wore yesterday. Oh, yeah, now I remember. I wore that bright striped top Mom bought at the discount store and my favorite jeans. I thought they looked cool together. What's wrong with that outfit anyway? I glanced down at the jeans and sweatshirt I was wearing. Since I'd gotten up kind of late, I hadn't had time to really think about my clothes, so I just threw on a pair of jeans and my old Winnie the Pooh sweatshirt with the grape juice stain on the sleeve. Oh, geesh, I can't let them see this outfit. I looked down at my clothes and rubbed my hands across my shirt. Tears streamed down my face. I have to get out of this restroom and go home. There is no way I can stay at school today, but I have to make sure no one sees me leave. I waited until the girls left and then made a dash for the lockers. I grabbed my jacket and hurried down the hallway. I heard the swish of the doors close behind me. Then I ran as fast as my feet would go, even with the heavy book bag knocking me painfully between my shoulder blades. About halfway home, I slowed down and walked at a regular pace, catching my breath. A pain started to creep up my side. Maybe my appendix will burst, and I can go to the hospital instead of back to school. Man, how could those girls have been so mean? If they felt that way about me, why didn't they just say so to my face? And I hate the way they talked about Maddy, too. And Zoe, my so-called oldest friend from kindergarten. I know I heard her squeaky voice in the restroom. I'll never trust her with anything ever again. Oh, geesh. Just when I thought life was looking good, this had to happen. Yep, I definitely was a leftover, all right. No one really liked me except for Maddy and my family, who had to. Entering the house, I went into my bedroom, pulled back the bedspread, and jumped into bed. Then I let it all out. I grabbed Puddin', my favorite stuffed dog, and hugged him tight. Puddin's eyes were gone, and his fur was rubbed smooth from all the times I had slept with him. No one knew I still did this, not even Mom. Then thoughts of Mom crept into my mind. What if my school contacted her at Engelman Elementary and asked her where I was? Still clutching Puddin', I dragged myself out of bed and went to the telephone to call Mom. I'll tell her I came down with the flu or something. It's a lie, but what else can I say? Engelman Elementary, Beth Gannon speaking. Mom, it's me. I knew my voice sounded funny. My throat hurt and my nose was stuffed up from crying. Gracie, is everything all right? Yeah, I came home. I don't feel so good. I must have the flu or something. Did the school call and ask about me? No, not yet. How exactly do you feel? You seemed all right this morning when you left. Terrible. I just think I'll get into bed and rest. I'm probably getting a flu bug or some virus. Okay, and I'll try to come home this noon to check on you. Oh, that's okay. You don't need to. I'll be all right. Well, we'll see. Take care of yourself, honey. Get some rest. Hanging up, I burst into tears again. My sweet Mom, did she hear the lie in my voice? And what would she think of those girls if I told her what they said about me? And why do I even care? Mom must have taken extra time for her lunch hour. She could tell right away that I wasn't really sick. I can't ever hide things from Mom. It made me feel bad to see the sad look on her face. I knew she hurt for me, and I didn't want her to know I was such a loser. That's when I spilled my guts. You know, Gracie, about the same thing happened to me when I was in the 7th grade. I was in the restroom at school when I heard one of my very best friends telling some lies about me. I almost died. Later, I found out she was jealous because she liked the same boy I did, but he liked me better. That's just the way girls your age act sometimes. It's not right, though, and I know you would never treat any of your friends that way. You care too much about people's feelings. Thanks, Mom, I said, wiping tears out of my eyes again. Where did all these buckets of tears come from anyway? Will they ever stop? Just remember, Gracie, you're just as good as they are, much better in fact, because you're my daughter. You're the greatest, and Dad and I love you very much. When I didn't say anything, Mom said, "You know, I have to take you back to school after lunch, don't you?" "But how can I face those traitors, Mom? Please, at least let me stay home the rest of the day. Please?" "The sooner you face them, the better, honey. Just hold your head up high and remember everything I just told you. You'll make it. I know you will." Mom fixed a grilled cheese sandwich and a bowl of tomato soup for both of us. I could hardly eat any of it, though. Then she wrote a note excusing me from school for the morning. "I'll give you a ride back to school now. Are you ready? Oh, by the way, Zach is going to Ben's after school for a while this afternoon, so you won't have to hurry home." "Just a minute. I want to change my top. I'm never going to wear this old Winnie the Pooh sweatshirt again. It's going to the dump." I rummaged through my drawers and then hurried as I looked through my closet, trying to find something to wear that looked new and different. Nothing showed up. "Oh, rats," I mumbled. I pulled out a white sweatshirt my aunt had given me last year. It had San Francisco written on the front in black lettering. "I don't want to impress those geeks anyway," I said, pulling the sweatshirt over my head. "Hurry up, Gracie," Mom called to me. "You know, you and I really need to go shopping one of these days. You want to?" I hadn't heard Mom talk about shopping since Dad lost his job. I knew we really couldn't afford many new things, so I answered, "Oh, whatever, Mom." After I dropped my note off at the office, I hurried to my locker. I decided I wouldn't look in another direction because I didn't feel like talking to anyone, no matter what. Someone was chomping gum. I heard snapping noises coming from a corner of the locker room. I knew immediately who it was. Zoe. I guess the talk Mom gave me made me feel brave. I decided to stare her down. When I made eye contact with her, her face and ears turned red, and she ran out of the room. I got through the afternoon because I didn't look at any of my so-called friends. I stared straight ahead when we changed classes. No one bothered me. After school, I met Maddy by the band room. I told her the whole story as we walked home. When we got to the corner where we had to part, Maddy put her arm around me and gave me a huge hug. "Rats. I'm so sorry this whole thing happened, Gracie. That was so mean of them, and I bet they feel bad about it now. But you know you need to forgive them sometime. But that's so hard to do, isn't it?" Tears welled up in Maddy's soft blue eyes, and she gave me another hug as we said goodbye. My heart felt warmer as I walked the rest of the way home. I still had that ugly, sick, hard feeling in my stomach, though. I wondered if I would always have to carry it around with me. When I got home, I found a note taped to our front door. "Oh, no, now what?" I said out loud. "That better not be from a bill collector or something." I jerked the note from the door. It was from Zoe. She had scribbled part of it in bright blue ink and the rest in red. just her style. The note had lots of smudges and scratched out places dotted all over the page. My eyes scanned it. "I'm so sorry, Gracie. Please forgive me. Cassie started all of it." I didn't read anymore. I crumbled the note into a tight, nasty ball and threw it into the trash. Well, at least she apologized right away. She must have had her mom bring her over right after school to get the note on the door so fast. At least she felt bad about it. Good. I remembered Zach had gone to Ben's and Mom wasn't home yet, so I went right to the phone and called Maddy. She said Zoe needed to grow up. I agreed. Zoe changed friends about as fast as most people change their socks. She had always been like that, though. "Rats and double rats, Gracie," said Maddy on the phone. "Let's just make some new friends and start our own little group. My mom told me about this new family in town. She met this lady at Newcomers Club. She has a daughter, but she isn't in the 6th grade. She's in the 5th. But that doesn't matter. She just hasn't made any friends yet. Her name is Emily. Emily Rogers. Want to go visit her?" "Sure, I'll go." "Guess there's something different about her. Mom didn't tell me what." "What do you mean, different?" "As long as she isn't like that stuck-up, snot-nosed Cassie." "Yeah, let's find out." Okay. I tossed and turned all night. I couldn't sleep. In the morning, I found my top sheet wrapped around the upper part of my body. It didn't seem like I had slept at all, but I guess I did. I felt a little better when I woke up, but my stomach still had a knot in it. I couldn't eat any breakfast except for one corner of my cinnamon wrap toast. Maddy and I met by her house and walked to school together. We talked about the clique and how they bullied me and talked mean to me. "I didn't want to go to school today," I said, "but Mom and Dad made me." I hated the thought of seeing those girls again. I decided I just wouldn't look at them. Maddy said I should stare them straight in the face. I didn't think I could. I got through the day. I couldn't avoid those traitors, but I noticed most of them couldn't look me in the eye. Once turning a corner by the music room, I almost collided with Cassie. She looked at me and I tried to stare her down. After several minutes of angry glaring, I was the first to turn away. I felt like a knife had stabbed me in the chest, and it seemed like the knife was twisting in deeper and deeper. The hurt still filled me up inside, and I wondered if it would ever go away. My stomach felt cold and shaky all morning, and lunch made me gag. I only swallowed a couple bites of chicken nuggets. I thought I might puke right there in front of everyone. It helped when Sarah asked if she could sit beside me at lunch. Sarah was always nice to both Cassie and me. She didn't always follow along with the crowd. Her big black eyes snapped when she said, "I can't believe they keep trying to bully you around." Zoe came up to me in the locker room. "Please don't stay mad at me, Gracie," she said in a baby-like voice. She then started to pop her gum in my face. Her eyes darted all around when she saw Cassie standing in the doorway, watching us. On Friday, Maddy asked if I could sleep over at her house. Yes. That evening, when she showed me her huge bedroom, my eyes grew wider and wider. Maddy and I ate popcorn and brownies all night long until we stuffed ourselves. We even had to roll around on the floor to make our stomachs settle down. When we got into bed, we talked about my problem almost all night long. By morning, I felt a little better. We decided we'd better visit Emily Rogers right away. My stomach still carried the big knot around in it. It filled up my entire stomach, so I couldn't even eat the good pancakes Maddy's mom fixed for us. The Rogers' 2-story white house with black shutters set far back from their tree-lined street. We were anxious about meeting Emily, but also a little excited. Will we have enough to say to her? Will she like us? What will she look like? Neither of us had seen her in school. The hurt in the pit of my stomach still felt like a big round stone, all cold and hard. Will I have to drag this around with me the rest of my life? How can I? The noise of Emily's doorbell sounded like a muffler in an old car. Startled, Maddy and I stared at each other and then broke into a fit of nervous giggles. Maddy clapped her hand over her mouth. I looked down the street until we controlled ourselves. We stopped giggling just as the door opened. Mrs. Rogers smiled down at us. She wore her dark brown hair pulled back in a ponytail, and she had gold hoop earrings. "Come in, girls. Which one of you is Maddy?" Mrs. Rogers asked, opening the door. "How do you like our crazy doorbell?" Maddy and I looked at each other and giggled nervously. "I'm Maddy." "I'm Gracie," I said, digging into my wrists. "My mom said you just moved here," said Maddy. "She said your daughter would like to meet some friends." "Yes, we moved in about 2 weeks ago. How nice of your mom to tell you about Emily. She's not in your grade, you know. She's a 5th grader, and she hasn't been happy about going to this school. Her dad and I worry about her fitting in and finding friends." "Oh?" Maddy and I said. "Emily has a hearing problem," said Mrs. Rogers. "That's why we installed such a loud doorbell. Once we sent her to a special school for the hearing impaired, and she learned to sign, but she got so homesick we let her come home after a few months. She used to wear a hearing aid most of the time, but when we moved here to Barrington, she decided she wouldn't wear it anymore." I hoped Emily couldn't hear her mother telling us these things. Then I remember Emily couldn't hear well. How would we talk to her? Maddy nudged me in the ribs. I looked into the living room and saw a girl sprawled in a navy blue chair. She had the most beautiful hair I had ever seen. Her thick dark hair looked almost coal black, and it rolled down to her shoulders in waves. My stomach started to feel jumpy again. I dug my thumb into the cuticles by the sides of my fingernails. Why can't I stop my bad habits? I heard Maddy clear her throat a couple times and knew she felt the same way. How will we talk to this girl who can't talk to us? Just then Mrs. Rogers said in a loud voice, "Emily, come meet these girls from school." We both looked at Emily. She looked as uncomfortable as we felt because she kept chewing on her bottom lip. Her large brown eyes seemed to fill up her whole face. I thought I had never seen anyone prettier in my life. "Hi," she said in a low, gravelly voice. What an ugly sound. "Hi, Emily. I'm Gracie Gannon, and this is Maddy Hall. We're both in 6th grade. We looked for you at school yesterday, and we're glad they scrunched the 5th graders into our middle school, or we wouldn't have had a chance to meet you." Did Emily understand anything I said? "Come on into the kitchen, girls," Mrs. Rogers said. "Would you like some soda or apple cider?" "Either one," Maddy and I said together, following Emily down the hall. "What should we talk about?" I whispered. Maddy shrugged her shoulders. We dropped our jackets on the counter, and then we slid into chairs. We both turned to Emily and smiled. "Don't let my voice scare you," Emily said. "I know it doesn't sound like yours. My mom probably told you I have a hearing problem, didn't she?" Maddy and I smiled and nodded. We had never talked to anybody like Emily before. I noticed Mrs. Rogers moved her lips distinctly, and Emily could understand her. I decided to try to talk the same way. I hoped I wouldn't look too stupid. "Who's your favorite teacher, Emily?" I said, mouthing the words like her mother had done. I waited, hoping she understood me. "Well, I like Mrs. Lund. She's cool. She's pretty, too. She sat me in the front of the room so I could read her lips, and she said to come in after school if I needed extra help." Emily looked down at the table and bit her bottom lip. Maddy and I smiled and nodded to her when she raised her head again. "I can read lips pretty well, and if people speak extra loud like Mom does, I can usually hear them. I've got a hearing aid, but you won't catch me wearing it. Everyone stares at me anyway. That dumb fit thing just freaks me out. So I just don't talk to anybody at school, and most of the teachers don't look at me when they speak either." "I talked to the principal yesterday," said Mrs. Rogers. I think you'll notice a difference Monday. I better, Emily said, but I don't know how I'll ever get to know the kids in my class. We'll help you, said Maddy with a smile. We know almost everyone in the fifth grade. We'll introduce you. I know, I said. There's a volleyball game after school Monday. Why don't you go with us? You could meet some of the kids. Yeah, said Maddy. Like, we'll show you around and you can sit with us. I have a brother, Will, in your grade, and he always goes to these games. He'd like to meet you. How about it? That's a good idea, said Mrs. Rogers. Sounds fun, doesn't it, Emily? Yeah, sure. I'll feel pretty weird, though. The kids in my other school finally got used to me, but it took forever. It's hard to be so different. Maddy and I looked at each other. I knew she was thinking the same thing. What if the kids make fun of her? You go to our church, don't you, Emily? I asked. Want to go to youth group with me sometimes? It's for 6th and 7th graders, but sometimes 5th graders come. I'll ask our leaders if you can come, and I know they won't care. Well, so what do you do there? Oh, we always have fun. We learn stuff, too. Our youth leader, Jay, and his wife are way cool. I know you'd like it. We play lots of ping pong, sing, and eat tons of brownies. Emily's eyes lit up. I'm pretty good at ping pong. That rocks. Yeah, I'd like to go, but I can't this time. I'm glad you two came over today, though. Want to watch TV or a DVD? Maddy and I glanced at the blue clock on the kitchen wall. I knew I should get home. Maddy probably should, too. I've got to go, said Maddy. I promised Mom I'd help her make dinner tonight, and we've got a long math assignment for Monday. Well, thanks for coming, girls, Mrs. Rogers said as she walked us to the door. Come back anytime you want, okay? You're always welcome. Yeah, thanks for coming, said Emily. We'll meet you right after school Monday at the gym door. Yeah, see you then. Bye, Emily. Nice to meet you. See you Monday. We both smiled and waved at her as we let ourselves out the front door and walked down the steps. When we had gone a few feet down the sidewalk, I turned at Maddy and said, what have we gotten ourselves into? Like, what if some of those kids aren't nice to her? What do we do? I don't know, said Maddy, but I'll talk to Will and tell him he better not blow it. Maybe he can spread the word to the rest of that class. After I left Maddy at her house, I tried to think of what we could say to the 5th graders so they would like Emily. I hoped she had a lot of courage. She'd need it Monday. All of a sudden, I realized I was thinking more about Emily's problem than mine. The hard knot in my stomach had disappeared.